to the West Clinic Hellness to Wellness podcast. This is taking people that are sick, out of hope, frustrated or confused with their medical recommendations, or are searching for another pathway to health, and it's finding incredible patient outcomes of people just like you. And it's not just saying it. You can see and hear the hundreds of patient success stories on our website, blog, YouTube channel, and of course, right here, coming at you with over a century of patient success in the West Clinic system. Here's your host, Dr. Jason West.
Okay, you guys, thanks so much for that introduction. We are talking about healthy fats and why they're so important and what happens with people that are taking fats and then they're not getting the clinical benefit of it. I mean, that's such a huge problem. And as always, I want to just give a shout out to the West Clinic team for making this happen with the world's greatest nurse practitioner and the two-time Doctor of the Year award winner, Dr. Nelson, and the rest of the West Clinic system and team members. And I just am so grateful for them allowing me and giving me the freedom to go out and put together content like this. And what we want to do is we want to reach and teach and heal the world. So we're talking about healthy fats and why they're so important. Really, if I get myself out of the way here, you know, the importance of fats, they protect cells, they protect the nerves, they lubricate the body, they provide a hormone structure. I mean, if you don't have fats, you literally can't make hormones. They maintain the skin, they protect the mucous membrane. I mean, if you don't have fats, it's kind of like the Tin Man on the Wizard of Oz, like you're just rusty. And it's so important, especially for, you know, the slowing down the age train and protecting your immune system. And here's the thing that we see amazing clinical outcomes in our office, on our YouTube and our Facebook channel all the time. It's really this simple. If the cells are healthy, then you're healthy. And what's around each cell? Literally a cell membrane or a phospholipid bilayer that protects the cell and the matrix from the outside environment. And there's protein channels that go through. And if the cells are healthy, then you're healthy. And it's so important to have that phospholipid bilayer that's inside of the system. So when I start thinking of not enough absorption of fats and the wrong kind of fats, we start thinking of things like dementia and nerve tingling and neuropathy and skin problems, you know, eczema, psoriasis, hormone imbalances, eye health is another big one. And it's so important to make sure that you have the right fats in your system. And those are the healthy and alive fats. It's not the saturated fats. Like, it's so important to understand the difference. So I put this presentation together to talk about 11 really important foods that are really good for fat and fat health. And that's what this presentation is really going over, is what could you get with your knife and fork, which is always the best source of vitamins and minerals, is how can you get that into your system? And then we've got to talk about bile salts and the liver gallbladder access. And yes, you can live without a gallbladder, but if you don't have one, we've got to do a little bit more work on that liver system, because that's really what helps to break down and absorb fats. So many times when people come in with a autoimmune disorder or a nerve problem, and we start off making sure the immune system works right, and then we got to think about, okay, what's happening with the nerves? You know, is it a genetic problem, which I think that's the least common? Is it a lack of fats? Is the absorption of fats? Is it infection, or is it chemicals? Like, that's always how I start with a chronic nerve health problem. And that's why I wanted to put together this presentation to teach people, look, there are some really important things that you can do in your diet that I think will have fantastic clinical outcomes and stuff like that. And that is foods like chia seeds and avocados and eggs and chicken noodle soup. So we're going to start going through those right here. So getting back to my presentation, one of my favorite recommendations for people is something that grandma would give us, and that's when we got sick, is chicken noodle soup. Now, of course, you can make chicken noodle soup unhealthy. If you make chicken noodle soup the old way, with, you know, the chicken, and you're literally extracting all of those electrolytes and fats out of the bones and getting that potassium and magnesium and zinc and vitamins A, C. I think chicken noodle soup is one of the best things that you can eat. If you put a bunch of bad things in it, like too many processed carbs and too much literally salt, you can turn a good food into a bad food. But this is one of my favorite recommendations. People saying, hey, what am I supposed to eat that'll really help me? Chicken noodle soup is one. I also like beef stew with bones. So we take, literally kind of a combination of a stew and a bone broth. And one of the reasons I like this so much is because it has one of the most important minerals for ligament health. And this is what I talked about in last week's show. If you have a sprained ankle or a shoulder like that, it's not maintaining, what's the best thing to do? Well, the best thing to do is to give you the mineral manganese. What manganese does is it helps to ligament health. It's good for joint health. There's some literature that suggests it's really good for sleep health and weight loss. So chicken noodle soup and beef stew. And then, of course, we got to talk about avocados. I mean, everybody talks about avocados. When we talk about where's the best source of fat, I think this is something that shows up all the time. Avocados have healthy fats, like literally 80% of it. It's shown to have some good outcomes with digestion and heart health, and it seems to make a positive difference with the HDL fats that help to control cholesterol. It doesn't push people over the edge. Now, you guys, I have to make a confession. You can get a book resource over at drjasonwest.live. This is what we do with our live shows that talks about the healthy foods to eat. It's a printout that you can get. And at the very beginning, I tell everybody, look, there is a little bit of danger in recommending fatty foods for people, because if you add the wrong food to fatty foods, it will make you expand laterally. It'll make you gain weight. And you know what that food is? It's refined carbohydrates. So if you add fats and sugars, now like literally we're making cake. Like one example is, take a multi-grain piece of toast and you put some butter on it in the morning. There's better things to eat, but it's not horrible as much as when you put jam on it. Now you've turned a piece of toast into cake. And people don't really think about that. Like when we put sugar on a high fat thing, then your body is going to start going into storage mode. But I really like the health benefits of fats. Just remember that eating fat doesn't make you fat. Combining fats with sugar is going to make you fat. Now, another food that I really like to help people to get their fat intake up is dark chocolate. Now, it's way different than milk chocolate, so don't be thinking that I told you that you can have the whatever you need for milk chocolate. Nope, that's not what I'm telling you. What I would advise or recommend, though, is dark chocolate is one of the best sources of magnesium, which is the miracle mineral. It's the cofactor for 300 enzymatic reactions. I see it's so helpful in circulatory, in fibrocystic breast disease, in fibromyalgia. Magnesium is that magic mineral. There's a lot of it in dark chocolate, and I think it's a really good thing. If you need to satisfy like a sugar craving, like go to dark chocolate, not milk chocolate. And one of the worst things we can do is to take another fatty food, which is nuts, cooked or roasted nuts, dip it in chocolate, and then give them to people. Like that's even worse. But straight up dark chocolate, I think it has some really nice healing properties in it. Fiber, magnesium resveratrol has some of the neatest antioxidant properties. And again, I like to use this as a sugar craving controller. Now, I like eggs. You have to be careful with them because some people are sensitive to eggs. And so you can't just say the eggs are good for everybody. But here's some of the neat things about eggs is they have some lecithin and some healthy cholesterol in it. And I like that component because, again, if we can protect the myelin sheath and protect the nerves and help the hormone structures and get a good source of protein, I think that that's a really good food. Now, some people are sensitive to components of the eggs and they can't eat it. So what I would recommend is a food sensitivity test looking at the antibodies to see if your immune system is literally against eggs. But if it's not, I think this is a great consideration for healthy fats and a good source of protein that's into your system. Now, the next thing we talk about of getting healthy fats into your system is fish. Now, usually it's the cold water fish. I don't like farm-raised fish, but it has healthy omega-3s, it has quality proteins. My clinical experience is I think that it helps cognitive function. There's some studies that suggest that it decreases heart risk. Now, one of the concerns that you have with fish is you want to make sure that you don't have, high levels of mercury. So, we start thinking of tuna and tilapia and some of the other things, but fresh wild caught salmon, I think is a really good consideration. I like to kind of stay away from bottom dwelling things like shrimp and lobster and scallops, even though scallops are one of my favorite foods, but they sit at the bottom of the ocean, and the ocean is exactly the cleanest place in the world. So I get, a little bit worried about that uptake. Periodically, I think they're fine, but healthy cold water fish, I think is a really good way of getting fats into your system. And then we talk about nuts. It has healthy fats in it, has fiber, it's a plant source protein. So if you are vegetarian, I think this is a really good place to pick up some good fats. Vitamin E is so good for tissue regeneration, cardiovascular needs. It helps to prevent viral infections in my experience. And the other thing that I like about vitamin E is it's a sex hormone precursor. So what does that mean? It helps with estrogen and testosterone and progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone mainly, but all hormones seem to be affected in a positive way by vitamin E. And of course, the best source of vitamin E is your knife and fork. Then we pick up the miracle mineral magnesium, and I've seen really good, pleasing clinical outcomes in helping manage type 2 diabetes with raw nuts. Now, they can't be roasted nuts and chocolate covered nuts and glazed nuts, cinnamon dusted nuts. It needs to be just raw nuts. And speaking of this, one of my favorite things to talk to people when they have arthritis in their fingers and they get these little enlargements, they're called Heberdine's nodes, is one of the best things that you can do for that is to have a handful of raw pecans twice a day, 4 to 5 in the morning, 4 to 5 at night. It has some compounds in it that seem to help with joint stiffness. It won't make the disfigurement go away, but if you start seeing a lot of arthritis on the PIP joint and the DIP joint, which are these two joints here, a lot of people call them old people fingers. I would absolutely check out raw pecans, not pecan pie, and not candied or clustered or cinnamon or chocolate dip pecans, just raw pecans. Really, really good for hand conditions. Okay, chia seeds is literally just pure healthy fats. It has a lot of carbs that are fiber, and then it has alpha linoleic acid, which helps to scrub off the outside of the cells and is really good in my experience with insulin resistance and making it so the cardiovascular system doesn't have to work so hard. So this is one of the considerations to help support hypertension and cardiovascular disease is chia seeds. About 1 ounce of chia seeds every day. It's such a great source of fats. And then coming down the home stretch, talking about full fat yogurt. And yogurt you have to be careful with because it's kind of turned into a bastardized food. So it's a fermented food. And then what we've done, to commercialize it and make it sell better is we put a slug of jam and sugar in it. And then we put a whole bunch of literally fillers to make it homogeneous and make it so that there's no lumps in it and stuff like that. And we literally have ruined what used to be a really good food. But if you can get access to full fat yogurt and it's not fat free, matter of fact, this is one of my frustrations that I see in practice is it's extremely rare when I recommend to patients, hey, you should have a low fat diet, because what gives foods taste is fats and sugar. So if we take the fats out of foods, how do you put the taste back in? You have to ramp up the sugar. What happens when you put the sugar in the system is then the insulin levels, the pancreas kicks in, it lowers the blood sugar, it stores it up, and I just think it causes a lot of healthcare concerns. So I do not like fat-free foods. I only caution people when you're eating fats, which is so good for your nervous system and your brain and your hormone balance, is don't mix it with carbohydrates, because that does cause weight gain. Full fat yogurt, so good for you. Probiotics, fermented foods, improves digestion, weight management. You just want to make sure that you have minimal sugar. And then when it goes to fat recommendations, and this is why I put together a supplement pack, because I wanted to review this with people. So many times people come in the office and say, look, I do all that. You know, I'm having avocados, I eat eggs, I eat raw nuts, I'm having fish. I'm trying to do all of this stuff, and it's not moving the needle on my clinical symptoms. And then we have to talk about the absorption pathway. So your liver and your gallbladder play a key role in the breakdown and use of fats. If you're taking fats and you're not seeing a clinical benefit, or if you have a really low cholesterol count or a really low HDL count, what I would recommend is making sure that we can absorb fats. How do you absorb fats? It's bile salts. So the liver, when fat comes down the GI pathway, the liver, literally gets a signal from a hormone to release bile to emulsify and break down fats. If there's too much bile made, the liver stores it up in the gallbladder. It's like a reservoir system. If you get a disease, gallbladder or gallbladder attacks, which are extremely painful, gallbladder has to come out. Now you lose that reservoir system, and the way to be healthy in that process is to make sure that the liver is firing on all cylinders, helping bile salts. Bile salts are so important to the breakdown and the use and the absorption of foods. So what do we do with the bile salts? One of the best things you can do is anything that helps the liver. So I like things like milk thistle. I really like things like niacin, and I like digestive enzymes, and I like bile salts. It helps to break down the food, and I've seen some really good outcomes with chronic constipation by stimulating or working on that bile salt pathway. And now, if you need sources for a good fat or a bile salt or anything else, you can go over to drjasonwest.live. That's part of what we do every single week. It's right here. You can get the replay. You can see the ebook. If you need an appointment at the office, if you need resources for a healthy system, that is what we have available over there. It connects right into our clinic website, where we have a blog, and we have thousands of patient testimonials of people that were out of hope and out of time and out of options. And that is what we want to help people to do, to recognize life comes from de-stressing and from healthy and alive foods and getting quality nutrients that are in your system and knowing your options so that you can get control of your life. I love that Arabian program. He who has hope has health. He who has health has everything. So that is our program tonight on healthy fats. Thank you so much for joining me. If you need more information, please reach out to us. You can just put in #fats in the comment section. And if you like the video, please like, share, give us a comment. We're also putting this podcast up on iTunes and Stitcher and across all the media platforms. Next week, we're talking about sleep, how to get good night's sleep. It's a 2-part series. I'm Dr. Jason West. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Hellness to Wellness podcast. Every week, we're sharing stories of people beating their disease or restored hope, treatments most doctors don't even know about, and information you need to live your life at the highest level. Remember, live. Don't just exist. Do us a favor. Please like the show and give us a rating on Apple Podcast or Spotify. It really helps to share the message of health and hope. For additional resources like booking appointments and free video masterclasses, check out www.drjasonwest.live. It's internet information you can trust. Here's to your energy, balance, and longevity. And we'll see you on the next Hellness to Wellness episode, where you'll be saying, man, I feel good.